We are back with Inside Norwood, sponsored by the Bach Fund. David Hajar, Tony Mazzucco have joined me, and we have some good topics to discuss, and we want to get into the upcoming special town meeting articles. Monday, October 19th, is a special town meeting, and I just want to, before we get into articles, I just want to ask you, don't you have two specials? So you're going to...
One right after the other.
One's for the one article?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you adjourn and take the vote, and then you go back into... Okay, let's talk about the first article. That's given some kind of a tax incentive. Is that what it is?
So,
and that's all been settled? It's working out?
Yeah, so we
Okay.
got a recommendation from our Economic Development Committee. And it was Tony, along with Bill Plasko and Alan Slater, basically negotiated a proposed tax incentive increment financing that over a 10-year period that would allow Moderna, we've been very, very happy, and I know they're very happy to be in Norwood too, to expand by building a new, brand new 200,000 square foot facility and renovating another close to 300,000 square feet. So what this does, it allows us, town meeting has to approve the financing proposal, and then allows the Board of Selectmen to execute the actual TIF agreement with Moderna, representatives of Moderna. So
Nice.
they took part of the negotiation as well. Everyone seems very, very happy. They're bringing more jobs in from Cambridge and Burlington. So this will be really good for not just the town, but for other small ancillary businesses that will sprout up and employ additional people, and all of them will be buying food and everything else. And a lot of them live moving to town as well. So it's great.
How many people are they going to hire, do you know?
So currently, they have about 1,000 jobs at the site. They have openings, about a little over 200 openings at the site. They are recruiting heavily. The new project is going to add about 300 new jobs, and they're also going to relocate about 75 jobs from their Burlington site. They have some space leased up in Burlington, Mass, down here. So all in, once all is said and done, you're probably looking at a total of maybe 1,500 or 1,600 jobs at the site.
Really?
Yeah.
Can we handle that traffic-wise? Is that...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they do run 3 shifts. And
Right.
if you remember that we used to have Polaroid up there, you used to have the Mercer building was full up there, you had the UTI building that was full up there. So, you know, the net gain to the town is probably not all that much, considering all those items have gone out and now they're all coming back.
Okay.
But these are good jobs. These are good, well-paying jobs.
Is this one article, is this a 2/3 vote?
No, simple majority.
Right.
Oh, okay, well, no problem. 2/3, I always found it.
I would hope it would be a unanimous concerning what
Yeah.
what they're doing with the town and for the town, and they've been nothing but great partners to deal with. We look at this as a long-term relationship, not something that's
Good
just
people to deal with?
They've been good people to deal with. Anytime we have a code issue or anything like that, they always, first of all, they usually don't have an issue, they resolve it. They're responsive to any of our needs. They're responsive to some of the neighbors' needs. And they have a track record of success. I mean, they came here 2016. They were sort of a company nobody ever heard of. And we did one TIF. And what a TIF is it's an agreement to forgive a portion of the growth of future taxes. So we're not taking anything out of the treasury and giving to them. It's saying if you invest X dollars and you create Y jobs, as your tax bill goes up, we will give you a portion of that or not tax you a portion of that increase in the tax value. So nothing ever comes out of the town's budget in a tax increment financing district. And incidentally, that's not the same in everywhere else. Other states you go to, it's very, very different. I worked in Maine where sometimes you could have a TIF that you would do it through an instrument called a CEA or Credit Enhancement Agreement, where you would give 100% of that tax increment back to the business. We've never done 100% TIF in Norwood. But their 2016 TIF was successful. They created more jobs than they said they would create. They invested more dollars into the facilities than they said they would. We then did a 2018 one, 2018, 2019. They once again exceeded that job number and exceeded that private investment investment. And now we're coming back on their current one where they're not only renovating an existing building, which there's a huge benefit to that. When these large commercial industrial buildings go vacant, they sometimes stay vacant for years. And if you think back to our history as a community, as a mill town, how long did some mill buildings stay vacant before they finally saw reuse? I mean, you're just now seeing it at the tannery the last handful of years, the Space Center the last handful of years. These areas stay vacant for decades before they're reinvested. So the mills of today, if you will, these modern commercial buildings, and some of them are not so modern, they're 30, 40, 50 years old. Once a big building like that is vacant, you can go decades sometimes before they're full again. So they're repurposing those buildings, which is great for the tax rate of the town, and they're also creating jobs, which is important. So this is the third time we've gone around with Moderna. We're still doing a TIF agreement that is slightly less than the state average, and it's also only a 10-year agreement. Walpole got a lot out of Siemens when they recruited Siemens to Walpole, but that was a 20-year agreement. So some of these towns are forgiving taxes for 20 years. We're taking the approach of we're going to be a little bit more aggressive, start high early on when they sort of need that cash flow, and then drop it down over the 10-year period. And then at the end, when our commercial tax rate is higher, we know that the tax rate generally goes up, so 10 years from now, that rate will likely be higher. That's where we're getting the majority of it. And after 10 years, all done and back. Because sometimes towns sign a 20-year TIF agreement, and businesses sometimes have a 20-year planning cycle where they may be able to leave after their 20-year period. The amount of investment that they're making, hundreds of millions of dollars, you're not going anywhere in 10 years.
Yeah,
No,
agreed.
$400 million.
Yeah. If they are they going to give a little priority to Norwood people? Yeah.
I mean, they will to the extent that they can. They need to hire qualified people. These jobs are for folks with, and not just qualified and saying, well, we want to take a good candidate over a mediocre candidate. They're recruiting all throughout the country. They have some pretty hefty signing bonuses. If anyone you know has a degree in the sciences or manufacturing, they're looking for all sorts of quality assurance and quality control. David and I keep looking at that website for jobs, and we don't even understand the jobs they're recruiting for. They're so complicated, but they're recruiting around the country because that's the type of talent pool that they need to get for people degrees in chemistry and degrees in biology. I mean, these are educated, highly paying jobs. If there's a Norwood resident out there, I strongly encourage you, put in for these jobs, and they're hiring, and these are good jobs.
Okay.
Complicated jobs.
And the
tough jobs,
200,000 square foot new building is to make more of the vaccine, so that's...
Sure. What's interesting about that is their existing manufacturing facility, the first TIF sort of that they did, was supposed to be a clinical manufacturing facility. So that was sort of more or less just to manufacture things for trials, for sort of small usage, and to get drugs to that manufacturing stage. They're now so busy they're running 3 shifts producing the vaccine that's quite literally saved the world. That became a commercial manufacturing facility, and now they're trying to rebuild a brand new clinical manufacturing facility so they can continue to do their clinical manufacturing and doing most of their commercial manufacturing in their existing clinical facility, which has been repurposed. And sometimes folks will say, well, they're going to come here anyway. Why should we bother doing this? The first TIF or two, they were going to pick a location based on it. Their last TIF agreement we did when they did their expansion into the UTI building, you could say, well, they're probably not going to expand anywhere else. Well, Moderna is now expanding around the globe. They're building plants in Canada. They're building plants in Europe. They could literally go anywhere in the world, and now we want to make sure that they keep expanding, and as they grow as a company, more and more of their expansion happens right here in Norwood. Great tax revenue and great jobs, and we're happy to have them here.
I think we're very fortunate.
We've knocked it out of the park.
Okay, now you're gonna, now after this is passed, I'm sure it will be passed, you go to adjournment, and then you start the second special. And the second special starts with Article 1, the appointment of the new fire chief, David Hayes.
Yep, this is just a sort of a housekeeping act. We did it several years ago with Chief Brooks. Anytime somebody who's in the public safety pension system wants to work beyond the age of 65, it just requires a special act. Town meeting approves it, and then it goes to the legislature who approves it. We did it for Chief Brooks. Chief Hayes is in his early to mid-60s, and we're looking for a longer tenure with him. I would like to keep him around, so it's just sort of a housekeeping item, if you will.
David?
Yeah, no, the board supports the 5-year contract that Tony negotiated, and which means he needs this
So he's going to be here for 5 years?
legislation. So,
We'd like him to be.
5-year contract?
We'd like him to be here for 5 years.
Nice.
I mean, he can always
Okay.
retire, but we'd like him to be here 5 years.
Okay, Article 2, resources for capital projects. You have a lot of dollars,
So
okay about
it's
that?
a pretty long list. It's a total of, say, $20 million.
Okay, can I just ask you
Sure.
one question right up front? Where is those resources coming from?
So it's a combination of borrowing and free cash.
In rates.
Okay.
Yeah, and some borrowing comes from water and sewer rates.
Right.
Okay, so you're going to have to borrow some money.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not a town in Massachusetts that funds capital projects like this throughout borrowing. I know
Really?
sometimes people hear, oh, absolutely, that you could never do a major capital project without borrowing. It's not like the town's in debt or anything like that. Think of your house. Very rarely, although this market's a little crazy, are people buying a house without having to borrow the money to do it. If you think of a $4 million HVAC system, there aren't towns in the Commonwealth, other than I think Cambridge, that has the kind of cash to do projects like that. So it's all part of our regular debt service. We are not allowed in Massachusetts to borrow for operations. So let's say we had a deficit in the budget and we said, gee, we don't want to cut the budget. You're not allowed to borrow like that. The federal government does. We only borrow for capital projects. It's the only way we'd be able to afford them. Towns never pay cash for fire engines. That's very rare. We'd like to be able to do it, but you're almost always borrowing it. Fire engine costs $1 million. The other reason you borrow for certain projects is you want to make sure you're spreading the cost out over the life cycle of that product so that everyone that's taking advantage of it is drumming in the prospect, the payment for it. Certainly, if we had an extra $20 or $30 million in cash every year, we'd pay cash for everything, but the total tax levy in town is only around $90 million.
Yeah. And is this a 2/3 vote? No?
Borrowing.
Borrowing is.
So this is the 2/3
The,
vote?
the
For
use of
for
free cash,
borrowing.
right.
You think, sometimes,
Using free cash is a simple majority, and so is the rates.
Yeah, when I was town meeting, the 2/3 vote was usually difficult. You do get it. You're going to get it. I'm sure you get some, some good, things you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, most of the capital plan, and again, the total's around $19.9 million. There's almost nothing, other than the lights at the football field, nothing is adding anything to our existing plant. We're not buying, any equipment we're buying is replacing what we have. Any of the infrastructure work is replacing or repairing existing infrastructure. Same thing with our buildings. So we're not buying land, we're not buying new buildings, we're not adding on to our buildings, we're not adding new equipment. I think there's maybe a $25,000 item that might be some small equipment. But as you look through them, they're all replacements of existing fixtures in the town and equipment. This is really what the town, with the exception of some projects we're trying to do with some infrastructure, realistically what we're going to need to do every year just to keep what we're going. Think of your house, it's no different. You know that every year you got to fix certain parts of your house. This plan, out of a $19.9 million plan, I think $19.5 million is fixing stuff that's there existing. Large portion of it is water and sewer. We're looking to continue our water lining project. We're looking at we have to do what's known as a sewer I&I study or a sewer inflow and infiltration study. We have to know what's going into the sewer system. That costs money, but ultimately it saves money down the road. If we can eliminate those infiltrations, it reduces what we end up paying for sewer. I mean, fixing the locker room at the Civic, fixing the lobby at the Civic, some design for the library. There's some water issues there that we got to look at that we need to take care of. You're talking about our road plan, another $2.8 million to get caught up on road paving.
Yeah, I have that, all those on the next show, okay?
Okay.
All those, okay, we have a couple of minutes. 1266 Washington Street, maintenance and repair of foundation for a traffic signal. What's going on with that?
Well, this is the traffic signal that, excuse me, that was approved last year to install at Short Street and Washington Street. So, and then due to the configuration of where the actual poles that are going to support the lights, where they go. I'm sorry. I'm going to take it.
Sure. So that Washington Short Street, we're concluding the project there to have a signalization at that intersection.
Okay.
So we think that'll be a good project once it's all coming. You'll actually see the DPW out there doing some work now.
Okay. Article 4, drainage pipes for systems on 19 Moore Street.
And sorry, if I could just jump back to just Article 3 for 1266 Washington
Yep,
Street.
go ahead.
That's an easement to allow us to conclude that project.
Okay.
So you'll see the DPW out there working. We just need an easement to be able to do it. But because an easement is a property right, only town meeting can purchase and sell or authorize the purchase and sale of property. It's at no cost to the town. We just need an access easement. So that's what Article 3 is. It's just granting us the easement to conclude that project.
Right. Article 4, we have about 2 minutes, a little over. Drainage
thing.
pipes on 19 Moore Street.
Real quick, we just need an easement to access drainage pipes. There's existing drainage pipes. They're being moved. Anytime that happens, we need to have an easement to do it. The town has thousands of easements throughout town. Again, no cost to that.
Okay. Article 5, the last one, changing zone districts for a property.
So this one, Tom, we decided to zone your house for commercial use so I could build a shop there. No, I'm kidding. Article 5 on the warrant is
It has to be today, I don't know why.
Article 5 on the warrant would be a rezoning of the Big Y Plaza. As you know, there's a big construction project down there right now to rebuild the supermarket. That intersection, that area in town could use some investment. The owner of the property has asked the planning board, and I believe they've assented to changing the zoning. It's currently zoned manufacturing, not retail. It's been retail use for probably 40 or 50 years. Norwood, at some point, we have manufacturing zoning all over town. So right now, they need to get a special permit every time you change out a retail use. So if you have a liquor store and it wants to change into a shoe store, they technically need to go through a special permit approval just to change one retail use to the other. So it's one of these sort of practical approaches to zoning to say, wait a minute, it's zone manufacturing. We probably don't want it to be zone manufacturing. You wouldn't want a manufacturing operation going in there. It's been retail for 50 years. With the investment that they're making, it's probably going to be retail for the next 30, 40, 50 years at least. So let's change out the manufacturing zoning. So on its face, as long as the neighbors can get taken care of there, a sensible zoning change, fairly small one.
So you expect to get these, all these articles, plus the one on the other special, through pretty easy then?
This is a fairly small warrant compared to other times. And that's actually something we've been trying to do over the last few years, is to break town meeting up into 2 or 3 sessions a year instead of, well, we kind of have a fall and we have a spring. We sort of want to do the fall where we know we'll do the capital plan. And what we've heard from some town meeting members, they're by and large very supportive of the town's capital plan every year. They know these are projects we need. We're investing what we have. But they'd like a little bit of time to at least go over it and talk about it. And it sometimes gets buried in the overall budget when we do it in May. So by doing it now in the fall, we can do our information sessions and talk to people about it and give them a chance to really ask questions and give capital outlay, which is made up of different boards and committees, a chance to really dive into these projects. And they've done that this year. So the goal is that we would do capital outlay in some items in the fall. Hopefully in the winter, February and March, we would do land use, because we'd like to try to just do land use once a year so we can really focus on that and make sure that we can do information sessions for the public. All the different boards and committees can get involved, that we can have a good process. And then in the annual in May would just be the annual budget, community preservation, and again, some small items that always tend to come up, closing out the budget year and everything else.
And I'll tell you what else. When I was a town meeting, I used to get frustrated because it went on and on. I used to sit there and I hated it.
You and many other town meeting members who've expressed the same thing. That breaking it up
just
this
the
way
school budget
allows
alone,
them to focus on.
Yeah, it's
it lets everyone have their say. It gives everyone a chance to be involved. It's not 5 or 6 nights at once. It might be 5 or 6 nights throughout the course of the year. It lets us go to the public and explain what we want to do, and gives people a chance to just take it in little bit smaller chunks instead of, hey, it's 5 nights in May and get everything done. And by the time you're on the capital plan or by the time you're on zoning, nobody wants to talk about it. Not that you just need to talk about everything at town meeting. Sometimes I know some folks feel town meeting talks about it to death, but we've heard from a lot of members and former members like yourself who just say it becomes too much at once. It's not a good experience, and they don't feel vested in it. So by breaking it up, we're hoping to say, okay, people can walk in and say, I've gone to the presentations on capital outlay. I've gone to the finance commission. I've read all the documents. I'm ready to vote on capital outlay. Instead of, wait a minute, I got a zoning ordinance here, and I got the budget, and I got capital outlay. So we're just going to try to break it up a couple times a year.
If you remember a couple of years ago that they tried to move the capital discussion on capital up into the warrant because it was always the last article that was talked about. And people, they knew that the night was going to wear on day after day, and they didn't want to do that. But
dread it, really,
by actually changing it to the fall, you don't have that many articles. It allows people to really focus on important issues.
Well, enough on the articles. We're going to go to a short break. Stay with us, please, and we'll be right back. Tony and David, I want to thank them for taking the time, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Great.